This was me last year. I had just ended my 2-year relationship and I was completely broken. It started off being a video for YouTube, but in the middle of it, I just started crying and that video ended up being for another person. I never ended up sending it nor keeping it. I deleted it, which is kind of unfortunate. I would really like to have that picture of myself from last year. And the reason I would like to see that is because this was the beginning of a whole new era. An era where I was taking matters into my own hands, but also a very hard time for myself. It was the first time that I was naked, but it was also the first time that I looked at failing in a completely different manner. My view on failing had completely changed. But let's talk about the old me for a little bit. The old me would have not overcome it. He would simply blame it on everyone else except himself. This happened quite a lot. It's hard to blame ourselves for our own misery. It's hard to say, I failed and I need to improve. Because if we blame something or someone else, the blame is not on us. There's no weight on us. We don't need to change. We're perfect and our ego loves that. When problems come up, you have two different possibilities. Possibility one is you sweep it under the rug and avoid it. Possibility 2 is you face it directly and solve it while it hasn't escalated. The problem with number 1 is that the problem is only solved temporarily. It's like you looking at a snake in your room and you're ignoring it. Like sooner or later the snake is going to bite you because it's still there. Number 2 is you getting rid of the snake, you getting rid of the problem. This way you will not get bit, but even if you are, the snake is so small that it won't harm you all that much. And when I was younger, I loved to use the possibility number 1. I loved to ignore my problems. I loved to blame it on someone else while still having these same problems and not working on myself. But then all this happened and there was a big shift. I was 19 years old and I finally decided to take responsibility for my life. I'm already an adult. I need to take responsibility for my life. I had enough of my shortcomings and I had enough of blaming other people for all the problems that were in my life. I decided to face everything, but this was risky because for the first time, I was really immersed in chaos. There was a lot of things just happening around me and things that made me feel really bad. And I didn't know if I was able to come out a better person. Some of you might be thinking, dude, you're still going to feel a lot of failure in your life. You're still going to be punched by life 100 times. And I know, but back then, this was the first time that I had so much chaos in my life, and that's why it was so hard. It's different times, different maturity, and so on. I was in a room full of snakes, and I was the one inviting them in. And what I mean with snakes is like shortcomings, my own shortcomings. I was the one pointing them out. I was the one actively searching for my shortcomings and saying, okay, you're there, and I'm going to solve this. I was being cold and harsh with myself. I finally said, every problem that you have, it's your fault and only you can solve this. It's all about personal responsibility. I was the one to blame for everything that had happened in my life. Who else could I blame? There's no one else. And now this is my new life philosophy. It's personal responsibility. I'm not going to blame anyone else. I'm going to blame myself. Where the question would always be, what did I do wrong? And this applied perfectly to trading. Because in trading, you can't blame anyone else. You can't blame manipulation. You can't blame other traders. You can't blame your friends, your strategy, whatever. Like, you can't blame it because at the end of the day, you were the one pulling the trigger. You were the one managing the trades. You were the one making all the decisions. No one forced you to put the trades on. No one forced you to follow someone's signals. So in trading, we are always to blame. I failed various Ftmos, but again, it wasn't because of the market. It wasn't because of the strategy. It was because of my own shortcomings, my own mindset problems, my own psychological problem. That is the thing that made me fail the Ftmos. And what did I need to do? I needed to take a step back. I need to do my ASR, understand what did I do wrong? What did I do right? What can I stop doing in order to grow as a trader? And this is the mindset that I'm trying to transmit in this video, which is instead of looking at your failure as something really bad, Look at it as a way to grow. You are only going to grow if you fail, because you already know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. And how are you going to learn? You are not going to learn something that you already know. You are going to learn about something that you don't know. So this is where failure is important. What do you think is easier to say? What are you doing? You need to work harder? Or this strategy is trash and I'm going to learn a new one. In one sentence, you blamed yourself, you took personal responsibility, and in the other one, you blamed something else and you just thought that the solution is to move on to something else. There is a fine line between when it's your fault and when you have to move on. Don't get caught into cult ideologies where you think that wherever you are is perfect, because that might also not be the case. But you need to be conscious enough to understand when you are trying to avoid working harder and when you are trying to avoid getting scammed of more money. But you really need to be true to yourself and understand, am I trying to take the easy route or am I trying to figure out something better? No one but yourself can define what this fine line is. And the only way that you are going to define that fine line is by being very, very true with yourself. Only when I took a step back did I understand that I was doing Ftmos because I was very delusional with my ability to trade. I thought that I had cracked the code and now all the way is up. I had a small funded account and I didn't value it, and all of a sudden I was doing 100k accounts left and right, failing and failing and failing, and I just kept on doing them, which was absolutely ridiculous. I thought I was ready, but in reality I was definitely not. But this was only something that I understood when I took a step back and I was like, okay, why am I doing this? I was a small baby trying to run, and oh boy did I fall. But when I was finally true to myself, I understood what I was really doing. I took a step back and noticed that I was rushing the process, and I failed multiple times. But this was no reason to cry. It was a reason to move on and learn from these mistakes. Don't get caught into beating yourself up just because you failed an Ftmo or you failed a My Forex funds or anything, because it is just another reason for you to know that you need to learn more. What did you do wrong? And learn from all those mistakes. And so after learning that I was doing this to myself and I was losing a lot of money because I was delusional, I simply stopped doing it. And this not only saved me a lot of money, but it also took me to my next level in trading. And this is how I'm trying to cope with my personal failures right now, which is taking personal responsibility and simply learning from them. Be true to yourself. Notice that you have your own shortcomings. Identify them and work on them. Grow from them. Identify the snakes in your life, your problems, and get rid of them while they are still small. Ones are going to be bigger, some of them are going to be small. I would really recommend people starting with the small ones and then gaining momentum and energy to solve the bigger problems. It's painful, but it's worth it. You might get bit, but you might also become stronger. And that's a risk that I'm willing to take, and you should too. Have a great life, everyone.